"Who are you, and why are you in my house?" That's what I yelled the moment I opened the door to my cabin and found a blonde stranger live streaming from my bedroom. She looked me straight in the eye and calmly told me she'd been living there for 2 weeks. Then, with a smile, she said I was trespassing on my own property. Minutes later, the cops arrived and they agreed with her. That was the moment my life flipped upside down and the nightmare really began. My name is Tim Scott. I'm 45 years old, a widower, and this story takes place in the Colorado mountains inside the cabin that was supposed to be my safe place. I inherited it from my grandfather, proposed to my wife Becky here, and we spent some of our happiest years in that little house. 8 months ago, Becky died of a heart attack in our bedroom, and I've been trying to put myself back together ever since. Every morning, I still set 2 coffee cups on the counter out of habit, and sometimes I talk to her photo like she can still hear me. That cabin wasn't just a building, it was my lifeline. I'd been away in Denver for a 2-week consulting job, and on a Friday afternoon I drove back up the mountain a day early. The trees were turning gold. The sky was that crisp autumn blue, and for the first time in months I actually felt like maybe I was going to heal. That feeling lasted about 10 seconds. When I pulled into my driveway, the lights were on. I knew I'd turned them off. Then I heard a woman's voice through the window. "Bidding starts at $50 for this gorgeous vintage wedding ring." My stomach dropped. I unlocked the door, and what I saw still haunts me. A woman I'd never seen before stood in my living room wearing Becky's favorite black dress. Her phone was propped up. She was broadcasting to thousands, and in her hand was Becky's wedding ring, the same one I'd slipped back on her finger at the funeral home. Around her, my wife's photos were scattered on the floor like trash. From the hallway, a man in nothing but a towel wandered out of my bedroom. My entire world tilted. "Turn that off! Get out of my house!" I said, shaking with rage. "That ring belonged to my wife. She's been gone 8 months and you have no right to be here." The woman who introduced herself as Erin Campbell just smirked. She reached into a designer purse, pulled out fancy-looking paperwork, and declared she was president of some property security education initiative. According to her, my place had been flagged as abandoned because it was empty for 2 weeks. She was running a live demonstration to teach homeowners about security. I thought I was dealing with a lunatic. Then a knock on the door came, and for a second, I was relieved police. But relief turned to disbelief when Officer Torres walked in phone in hand, filming himself for his own live stream. He called me a suspect, threatening a property security expert. I showed him my driver's license, explained the history of the cabin, begged him to see what was happening. Torres looked more impressed with Erin's follower count than with the fact she was selling my wife's jewelry. Finally, he shrugged and said it was a civil matter, nothing criminal, and left me to work it out with her. Erin packed up her stream with a smug little smile like she'd just won. That night, I realized something even worse. Becky's ashes were missing. Her urn was gone. I tore through the house looking for it until my hands shook. That's when despair hit me like a truck. Maybe I'd failed. Maybe I'd been careless leaving the place empty. Maybe I wasn't strong enough to protect what Becky left behind. For a few hours, I sat there ready to give up, wondering if this was my fault. And then Madison knocked on the door. She owned a coffee shop down the mountain. She'd seen the patrol car, came with hot drinks, and looked at me with genuine concern. She'd known Becky, she said. She vouched for me in front of Torres earlier and told me she'd help put things back together. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't alone. She knelt beside me on the floor, helping pick up Becky's photos, and whispered, "We'll get through this together." Her timing saved me, and so did my cameras. Months earlier, I'd hidden a smoke detector cam above the fireplace. That footage showed Erin dragging Becky's urn out back and dumping it like garbage. Madison gasped when she saw it. My heart shattered again, but anger flared hot. This wasn't just trespassing, it was cruelty. We kept watching. What we uncovered was sick. Erin had turned my cabin into a business. She listed my wife's bedroom online as Angel's Memory Room, charging hundreds a night for people to sleep in Becky's deathbed and connect with grief energy. Every review was fake, every guest invented. She sold Becky's belongings one by one on live stream, putting on her clothes, reading her diary entries for donations, auctioning off her glasses, her coffee mug, her jewelry. 45,000 followers thought they were learning about home security while they funded her desecration of my wife's memory. I wanted to vomit, but something else gnawed at me. How did she know exactly when I'd be gone? The footage showed she moved in hours after I left for Denver. That wasn't coincidence. Someone tipped her off. My neighbor Connor let it slip he'd been hired to take photos of my property by a so-called management company for grieving homeowners. He thought it was legitimate. When I pressed him, he admitted a professional-looking woman had shown up weeks earlier with documents. And then, while Madison and I were going over timelines, I noticed something on her hand, a ring, a simple gold band with a tiny diamond. I knew that ring. It was Becky's engagement ring, the one she'd tucked in her jewelry box months before she died. "That's a beautiful ring," I said casually. "Where'd you get it?" For a split second, Madison's face flickered with panic before she claimed it was her grandmother's heirloom. But I'd seen the engraving inside the private joke Becky and I used to share. My stomach dropped. I checked Becky's jewelry box. The ring was gone along with other pieces. Madison had been in our bedroom before Becky died. Suddenly, her perfect timing, her constant support, the way she always showed up when I was weakest, they didn't feel like kindness anymore. They felt like strategy. The truth hit hard. Madison wasn't my savior. She was Aaron's partner. Cameras confirmed it. One night, they streamed together from my living room. Madison explained with a teacher's calm how predators exploit grieving homeowners, how to isolate them, make them dependent, and milk them for information. I watched her describe me step by step like I was their case study. I should have broken then, but instead I felt something cold settle in my chest. If they wanted a broken widower, they picked the wrong man. I started planning. I showed Madison fake emails about a grief retreat in Arizona. I told her she was right. I needed space. I was leaving for a week. She encouraged it, almost pushed me out the door. Perfect. Before I left, I installed a new hardwired camera system hidden in walls impossible to detect or jam. Then I staged my departure parked 5 miles away and hiked back to watch. Within hours, they arrived with Champagne Becky's anniversary bottle we'd been saving and celebrated. They laughed, bragged, and recorded what they called a post-operation debrief. Madison even admitted slipping supplements into Becky's routine that interfered with her medication. My wife's death hadn't been natural. It was engineered. Madison killed her to create the perfect victim me. I recorded every second. Their confessions, their plans for new targets, the money trails, the manipulation. Over 48 hours, I gathered a mountain of proof. Then I cut it into a 2-hour video called How Grief Predators Murdered My Wife and Taught Me to Trust My Killer. At 3 in the morning, I uploaded it everywhere. By sunrise, it had millions of views. By noon, hashtags where trending victims across the country shared their own stories and protesters surrounded Madison's coffee shop. Federal agents swooped in within days. Madison was arrested for murder fraud and conspiracy. Aaron got 25 years. Torres went down for corruption and accessory charges. Their entire network collapsed under the weight of the evidence they'd handed me themselves. I stood in the cabin where it all began, watching their empire burn, and felt nothing but grim relief. They'd destroyed my sanctuary, violated Becky's memory, and nearly convinced me I was powerless. But in the end, the truth cut deeper than any lie they spun. Never underestimate how far predators will go to exploit grief, and never underestimate what a broken man will do when you try to turn his pain into profit.